Biodun Shonbanjo commenced his communication career with the former Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation, now Federal Radio Corporation, in 1964 as a studio manager. After leaving in 1971, he joined the American-Nigerian agency Grants Advertising. He rose to the post of Deputy Managing Director of Grants Advertising before his 30th birthday, and then went ahead to co-found Insight Communications, which is now Insight Gray, in 1979. That company has today grown from the initial 18-man strong team into an advertising behemoth. The Troika Group, which is a holding company for Insight Communications, as a guy, Optimum Exposure, Media Perspective, Mediacom, the Quadrant Company, and Halogen Security, among others, employs more than 7,000 Nigerian men and women. For more on the story of an undoubted accomplishment, we are now being joined by the man himself, Biodun Shonbanjo, Chief Executive Officer of the Troika Holding Group. Welcome to the program, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, Tundu.
Before we continue, sir,
Ruben,
I just have to say, yes, sir. I just have to say before we actually start, this book is excellent. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm a lot richer for having read it. It's great.
Well, congratulations, sir.
So
Let me join
Tundu
in congratulating you on the publication of The Will to Win. And I agree with her absolutely that Dr. Adekombi has done a great job. But, I mean, this is the first definitive work on you. Why did you take this long with all your achievements in the public space, in the profession, in advertising, as a leader, as an employer? Why did it take you this long to tell your story? And in responding to that, I would like you to just take us through the journey from Jeba to Zaria to Lagos and to your emergence as Nigeria says Sachi, as some people refer to you.
Thank you very much, Ruben. First, so let me correct. Tundu said we employ about 7,000 people. That's actually incorrect. We employ about 18,000 people in all. So the journey started in Jeba, as it was put in the book, to Zaria, to Lagos, back to Ijebu to go to school, then started work at the old NBC, into Grant. I worked there for 4.5 years and then got to the board, spent another 4 years, left to go and co-found Insight Communications, which is the arrowhead of our businesses. The rest, as they say, is history. So we have also been able to sprout other companies, some of which you mentioned in your introduction. And as I said, we now employ 18,000 people. I think that would be the summary of the story, Ruben.
Well, really a summary. But I asked you about why it is just now that a book is being done about you. One would have expected that long before now there would have been a book. Please.
Well, you know, if you wanted to write either an autobiography or a biography, you must have a robust story to tell. And I felt that if I didn't wait, the story may not be sufficiently interesting. There were temptations from different writers who wanted to do something about me, but I said we should just make haste slowly. And it will also interest you, by the way, Ruben, that this book took 20-something years to write. Dotun was very patient. At a point in time, we had a 10-year break when I said, look, let's just leave this thing. But fortuitously, that then, as you now have in your hands.
Well, so you said if you do not understand the dream, you cannot act the dream. That's clearly the statement of a visionary, but what do you mean by that?
Well, you know, there was something that motivated the founding of Insight. And the philosophy was one in which we wanted our people to understand we let them understand the reason for being of our businesses, which is not just to start a company in whatever area or sphere of business, but to deliver certain values to clients, because that was behind, if you like, the establishment of Insight Communications itself. Firstly is the fact that we must do things. We should not benchmark whatever it is that we do with local standards. Number two, there must be honor and integrity in the things that we do. And finally, it must be for the benefit of the clients that we serve. For us, the client, every of our business, the client is the king. So we must go that extra mile to try and deliver beyond their expectations. So if you don't understand that, then there's no way you can be said to be a troika person, as it were. And I promise you, every employee that we take on, we make them understand those very principles. So that's what we mean by if we.
All right, sir. I must have to say I'm really, amazed by all you've achieved. I've watched you over the years. In fact, I'd like to have a personal sit down with you if that can be possible. That would be a great Christmas present for me, and just talk about your life. You're a man that keeps pushing the envelope and everything. You did something that really, endeared me to you. In the 90s, you were robbed, and that led you to forming one of the biggest security companies in Nigeria. Not everybody does that, and that's to show you the kind of man you are. And what's the story behind that? Because you keep reinventing yourself every time.
Thank you very much, Rufai, for the compliments. The ability to see opportunities where others see failures or challenges is one of the things that drives me. What one basically did was to turn a fairly dangerous and unfortunate situation to an opportunity. I think, the story has been told several times. It turned out to be a comedy of errors eventually. What happened was that on the night of 30th of January 1992, at about 10 minutes to 1 o'clock, I had a phone call in my house. So my wife was away. She was in New York at the time. So I thought she was the one calling to say, look, Nigeria Airways had canceled the flight. They're not coming, so don't send the driver to the airport. So, because I tend to sleep very early anyway. So I reluctantly picked the phone. And to my shock, there was this heavy voice with an American drawl that said to me, get 100,000 naira ready or we'll blow your ass. And he said, we are coming to your house this morning. So I jumped out of my bed. I wiped my face. I thought maybe it was a dream. Then I got myself together, called the police, and the police came. Irrespective of what people have different experiences. On that night, they were there promptly. And I told them what had happened, and I begged them. I said, could you please mount a roadblock in front of my house? So they assured me, they said they couldn't mount a roadblock, but they keep an eye on my neighborhood. And I lived on the main road, Okwebi Road. I mean, everybody knows Okwebi Road in Ikeja. So they left. At 10 minutes to 3 o'clock, a car stopped in front of my house. All the 4 doors flung open. 4 guys came out of the car. They moved towards my gate and started rattling it and saying, security, come and open it. So my security guys then moved back, and they shot towards them. So I said, wow, this is trouble. Thankfully, I have a gun. I had a license to carry a gun. So I loaded the gun, and shot back at them, and then the shooting started. So I think the shooting must have gone on for about 20, 30 minutes. Then there was a lull. Suddenly, again, I saw shadows approaching my house, and I said, these guys are back again. I opened fire, they opened fire, and we started shooting till 7:15 in the morning. 7:15 in the morning. So I got tired. I dropped my gun on the bed, went to my window. I think God has a purpose for my life, because when I got to the window, I drew the curtains, I opened the windows, and I looked out. There were lots of people lying on the streets, pointing guns. So I said to them, listen, what do you guys want? And one of them got up and said, we are the police. And I said, what? Police? He said, yes. He said, are you alone? I said, yes, I'm alone. My children are here with me. Anyway, got a long story. They came in, inside my house, picked all the shells of the bullets that had been expended, and I ended up in Kpanti. Cut a long story short. They kept me for 3 days, and I had some interesting experiences in that period of time. Of course, my friends all rallied around, relations and all that. Eventually, I was released on the 3rd of February. So when I looked at what happened, we were supposed to have a security company in my house that day. They fled. They just ran away. So I said to myself, we need to engage a proper security company. So we combed the whole of Lagos. We needed 36 guards, our offices, our homes of our executive directors and things like that. No company could provide us 36 guards. They said the earliest we could get 36 men would be 6 months. And I said, no, 6 months is too long to wait. So I spoke to a friend of mine who was in the police. Interestingly, I continued to give him the thanks because God used him. He eventually became an Inspector General of Police himself before he retired. M.A.K. Smith. He was the Commissioner of Police at the time. And I said, M.A.K., what does it take to start a security company? So he advised me, and then we applied. The rest is history. We got the license. They did the necessary search on those of us who are directors or promoters of the company. And so that's how we started the company with 36 guards, exactly the same number that we didn't see it as a commercial proposition, to be honest. But I was clear in my mind that there had to be a different kind of security company. So I went around, literally I went to the US, I went to Europe looking for partners, technical partners, as I would usually do. And eventually I settled for a South African company called Coin Security, because I reckon that the problems, the security problems and challenges in South Africa are similar to those that we have in Nigeria. And I must tell you, I told them, all I want you to do is train these guys so they can be totally different. And I think it is fair to say that halogen security has proven itself in the marketplace today. They tend to deliver on the kind of values that we ourselves cherish. So that's the story behind that, Rufai, since you are interested in knowing what happened.
Well, sir, I remember that story quite well. At that time, it was a major event in the city of Lagos, and people were wondering how you were able to hold down the assailants for so long. But your biography is titled The Will to Win. What will you consider the essential elements of that will? And how does that play out in enterprise management situations? And what kind of advice will you be giving younger people who want to develop this will to win?
Okay. Again, I think it is by some strange coincidence that this book came out after the events of 20th of October. And I felt very enthusiastic that because young people tend to look towards government, they'll create jobs, I can apply there and get, yes, whilst government may help, they would never be able to satisfy everybody. Because one knows, all of us believe, we know that it's the private sector that actually is the engine of the economy. So, and if you imagine that all of these companies we are talking about were started when I was 35. So I said to myself, now, there are nudges in this book that I want young Nigerians to lay their hands on. which is basically how do you actually go out and begin to do things for yourself? The first challenge is that of finance. Most young people, as indeed we were at the time, will say there's no money. I recall that we had approached somebody who we thought had money to help us so we could start our dream. And of course, he didn't believe in the dream. So we started on our own, looked for money here and there. And the startup capital for our first company was 128,000 naira only in 1980. And some of our shareholders, who incidentally were employees of the company, the people that I brought along, some of them put down 1,000 naira. There was a guy who put down only 500 naira as his own share capital. So money should never be the deterrent. I mean, and to be honest, with the advent of technology and digital technology, I mean, everybody knows that you don't need a lot of money to start all of those things. So that's the first thing, that I want young people to believe that money should never be seen as your major hurdle. That's point number one. Point number two is that whatever it is that you want to do, you must be very passionate in that thing. And that explains why I've been in this business 49 years now. I mean, even though I stood years ago. But when you talk advertising, marketing, communications, my ears just open because I'm very passionate about it. So you've got to be passionate about what you want to do, and you've got to be very focused on it. Number three is that you must try to be different in anything that you do. I mean, when we started, our first advertisement was a 6 inches by 2 column ad. But we wanted it to be different so that people could notice it. So you have to be noticed. You have to be extremely hardworking. Till today, when you go to our offices, you find people, closing time says 4:30. There are people there at 10 o'clock, at 11 o'clock, because there's work to be done. Because we need to satisfy our paymasters, who are our clients. So those are the little things that people need to do, that is 24/7. You know, once you get into it, you must be ready to dirty your hands, really working hard. Because work hard doesn't kill. You know, working hard does not kill anybody, as far as I know. So those are the little nudges that I think people should take on board. And of course, hand over everything to God, because at the end of the day, it is God that makes things happen. You know, and honestly, you start small, before you know it begins to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Rufai referred to is a part of the book called Bloodbath in Adland, and it was really very sad, that whole sequence of tragic events, starting with the murder of Dr. Okere from police brutality, going on to the murder of Dr. Ogbebor, to Fumi Lijadu, and then your really nightmarish experience. And it's so funny that even though this is your autobiography, these events happened so long ago, these problems continue to reoccur now. I just wanted to make that observation. Now, one of the really beautiful things about this book was that it's such a balanced account. It shows your ups and downs and the highs and lows. Like you just said, securing funding, how Insight was born, how you came up with the name, getting started, the naysayers, the open hostility from your previous employers. I want you to talk more about that so that it can encourage a lot of young managers today, and what you see that they might be doing wrong that you'd like to advise them on.
Okay, when I came to the conclusion that, and I gave notice that I was going to leave, and I must say that the company, Grant Advertising, was very kind to me. I mean, and my chairman and another director, the late Chief Lawson, and Chris Ogunbanjo, they were very nice to me. I mean, I got to that board, I was 31 and a half years old. And you know, I enjoyed my time there, but at the point in time, I thought we started losing focus. And I said, look, I mean, I don't want to be a part of this. And there was no way that things could change because of the kind of the leadership that we had there. So when I came to the conclusion that I had to leave, I had banked on the fact that my severance pay and all that should be enough to get us started. But guess what? As I sit down here, I severance pay till today. So in any case, I because the company no longer exists, as it were. So there was no need for some of the hostilities I experienced. Some of the young boys that I took along with me also forfeited their severance.
Well, we seem to have lost audio connection there with Mr. Biodun Shonbanjo. We'll take a quick break and see if that can be fixed so that we can continue with the conversation. Stay with us. It's still the Arise News. We now have a connection back with Mr. Biodun Shonbanjo, Chief Executive Officer of Troika Holdings. Welcome back to the program, sir. Before we lost connection with you, you were responding to the question asked by Tundun about how Insight came about and how you came about the name and all of that. If you may just continue, sir.
So anyway, once one had made up one's mind that that company was going to be set up, everything behind it. A very good friend of mine, his senior brother, Mr. Godi Amadi, who stood by us at the time, was a shareholder, even though he was. When you say shareholder, we are talking of someone putting down about 20,000 naira or 19,000 naira. It wasn't a lot of money. But Godi stood by us. When we ran short of funds, he even pledged his money in Imo State, for which we were able to raise 60,000 naira from one insurance bank. Very interesting, but there was that determination. A friend of mine who was also a client, Nasruddin, who in fact gave us the first cash that we needed, 25,000 naira. So, I mean, the name through it. In those days, every company that was in advertising had something advertising. And I said, no, we won't call us something. So we thought deep, and when I came up with the name Insight, it was as if I saw the future. I tagged communications with it. So when we opened our doors, 2nd of January 1980, there was Insight Communications, 18 people, and we were ready to take on the world. So that's the very beginning, very interesting beginning. Only one client, and the budget was 15,000 naira. But that was support. Even in those very early days, people like the late Oluwaboderi would come and visit us in our offices in Calabar Street. The late Chief M.Q. Abiola, his was totally different. I mean, he was just an incredible man. He came, when he, I remember Kola and the brother were still in school. He brought them along to let them see what we're trying to do. And by the way, when we started, we didn't join the Advertising Association of Nigeria because we thought we could at least spend a bit of time to break the rules. And therefore, media owners were not giving us discounts. But guess what? Chief Aboderi and Chief Abiola, they said, we will support you, we'll give you discounts. Don't worry. And that gave us so much encouragement to go on. And we also had somebody in Kano, Garba Kankarufi, who said, don't worry, I'll take you to the radio stations in the north. And he did. He took Jimmy Oshika on the tour. And they were ready to give us discounts, give us credit and all that, So very interesting beginnings. So God's hand was in everything that we did. And before you knew it, the business started growing. Started working for clients like Nestle. They were called Food Specialties at the time, Cocoa Industries, point in time. And such other clients that gave us the break,
Right, amazing insight there. I mean, you've done a lot with your story with Insight and how Insight has grown now with partnership with publicists and the likes and all of that. But there's this question I've been meaning to ask you personally. That's why I was calling for that sit down. First, I'll sit down with you. It's about how can we turn Nigerian advertising companies into world-class giants? And I want to cite the model that this guy used, WPP Martin Sorrell. Sort of like his Sorrell model, that he just bought up a wire company, and from there started acquiring a couple of other advertising firms around the world, and he built WPP something very big. I mean, when are we going to have a Nigerian do it? A Nigerian company like you do it. Maybe people coming under you will be able to do it, and we're going to have a multinational advertising firm out of here. The Sorrell model.
Well, interestingly, I was close to Mr. Sorrell. I knew him personally. If you want to know that Grey Advertising actually is part of WPP, one of the companies that WPP bought. But the story of Martin is like magic. You may not know. When he worked with Saatchi and Saatchi, the original Saatchi and Saatchi, he was the finance director there.
Yeah.
Because he's a finance person. So when he left, when the Saatchi brothers had to leave, because don't forget that at that time there were institutional investors in the company, and they were querying what those two brothers were doing, and they left. They had to go. Shortly after, and they were the soul of the company. Shortly after they left, Martin also left. And then formed his Wire and Paper Products, which is the meaning of the WPP thing, Wire and Paper Products Limited. He just used that as an investment company, and from there he started buying advertising agencies. Now there are so many ways in which I think there are two ways in which you can grow a company: either begin to buy or grow organically. In this country, the first challenge is that advertising spend is very, very small. Global advertising spend as at 2019 was about $626 billion. Now, what was the spend levels in Nigeria last year? That's where you begin to start from. And why are media? Why is the media spend low in Nigeria? The media themselves are low, and they had to be so, because I mean, if you take a paper, the leading paper in Japan, for instance, that circulates 10 million copies a day, or you go to the UK. I mean, you look at the US, for instance. USA Today probably has a circulation of 2 million copies a day. So those kind of figures, when you situate them against what happens here, I mean, what is the largest circulating newspaper in Nigeria? Paper does 40,000 copies. I would doubt it. I would doubt it very much. Now, you look at even electronic media. There is so much fragmentation that's gone on because there are so many TV stations, so many radio stations, and you are running after the same 200 million population. So when you look at the cost per thousand, figures are so abysmally low here. So if advertising spend is not high, there's no way you can begin to think of saying you want to be a global company. It's not possible. It's just not possible at all. So that's the first. We went to Ghana many years ago. Insight went to Ghana. There was an Insight in Ghana. We had to come back with our tail in between our laps, because that market is totally different. It was not sophisticated. The people were not, the people in the business, because they had lost about 10 years, because when the economy was down in Ghana, we had to start taking people, had to start training people. We took our people there. We took 4 people there. Only one of them came back, because they started their own companies. So it's a very tough call. I mean, Rufai, we can't begin to compare apples and oranges. I mean, even South Africa, that's more sophisticated, There is no South African company that can ever say, look, I'm going to become a global, but it's not possible for the reasons I've just told you.
Well, I mean, your biography captured also not just the victories, but also some of the battles you lost. What kind of lessons do you think younger entrepreneurs can learn in this regard? Because it's not just, it's win some, lose some.
That's correct. Yes, that's correct. That's correct. We had companies that we started that that died. In fact, we had to lick our wounds. We were the first to start. You know, we played a lot of pioneering role in this business. We were the first to start a PR consultancy. We were the first to start a second creative agency called MCNA. MCNA had potentials. It was doing very well. Now, why did we do that? We needed to create multiple streams of income. We needed to give our people the opportunity, because otherwise there will be glass ceilings, so they themselves can express themselves and reach for much greater heights. But you know, and you put Nigerians there, you only have to trust people. I trust people totally, completely. But when you have a leadership who is not in sync with your aspirations, who begins to moonlight, as it happens at MCNA, the followership will follow suit. So that company had to die because there was no focus. We started a company called MIT Healthcare. It was too early for itself. The only because when we started that, the whole idea was that they would advertise ethical products, at least to happen in the Western world. This market was not ready for that at the time. We started a company called Link Studios to do pre-pressed materials and things like that. It died. So we learned, you know, then MCNA, we turned into other companies and all that. It just didn't work. So we had to shut our doors, lick our wounds. Flossing taught me in the very early days. He said, you know, when you have a project on which you are losing money, you must learn to cut your losses and just move on from there. So I learned from that, and once I saw that any of our businesses were struggling and they were running short of oxygen and there was nothing you could do to resuscitate them, we shut the doors and then moved on from there. So we lost money. Sometimes we'll take some of the people back in and put them in our other companies. So the lesson there is that, look, when you are faced with challenges, don't be dispirited, because you can't win all of these battles. You can't win in every case. But be focused. Look at the ones that are delivering and keep supporting those ones as best as you can. Otherwise, if you feel dispirited, I think, you know, you may end up just totally going off track, and that we have tried to avoid.
Well, many lessons there. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Shonbanjo, for this opportunity to have this conversation with you this morning.